On February 16, 2005, a Cessna Citation 560, operated by Martinair Incorporated for Circuit City stores, crashed. The aircraft was carrying 2 pilots and 6 passengers, and the flight departed from Richmond International Airport in Richmond, Virginia, and was headed to John Wayne Airport in Santa Ana, California, with a scheduled fuel stop in Pueblo, Colorado. During the flight, the aircraft encountered icing conditions, and despite efforts to combat the conditions, the airplane crashed east of Pueblo Memorial Airport. All 8 people on board perished in the accident. What caused this tragedy to occur? Let's investigate the flight files of Circuit City Stores Cessna Citation 560. Hello everyone and welcome to the Flight Files. I'm Daniel and I'm an aviation enthusiast who enjoys learning about all things aviation. Before I get into the meat of the episode, be sure to check out the website, theflightfiles.com, and follow the show on social media. It's at The Flight Files everywhere. Without further ado, let's get into the flight files of the Circuit City Stores crash. The Cessna Citation 560 was owned by Circuit City Stores and operated by Martinair under Part 91 regulations at the time of the accident. While Circuit City Stores owned the aircraft, Martinair was responsible for operations and maintenance of the 500 AT through a management services agreement in effect since 1993. Martinair also managed 14 other aircraft, operated an additional 10, and employed 33 full and part-time pilots, in addition to 8 aircraft mechanics. Manufactured on the 22nd of October 1991 by Cessna, the aircraft was certified under 14 CFR Part 25 standards. By February 16, 2005, the date of the accident, the Cessna had logged approximately 3,658 flight hours. The aircraft was powered by 2 Pratt & Whitney Canada JT15D5A turbofan engines, each having operated for around 3,585 hours since their manufacture. Both engines had undergone an overhaul approximately 114 hours prior to the accident. The flight's intended route originated from Richmond International Airport in Richmond, Virginia, making a stop at Columbia Regional Airport in Columbia, Missouri, before its scheduled fuel stop at Pueblo Memorial Airport in Pueblo, Colorado. The final destination was John Wayne Airport in Santa Ana, California. The flight crew consisted of 2 pilots, a captain and a first officer. The captain, aged 53, began employment at Martinair on February 1, 2002. He held a multi-engine airline transport pilot certificate with type ratings for Beechcraft 300 and 1900, Cessna 500, and Dassault Falcon DA-10 series aircraft. His total flight hours numbered 8,577, with 2,735 hours accrued piloting Cessna Citation aircraft. Of those hours in a Cessna Citation, 1,500 were logged as pilot in command. The first officer, aged 44, joined Martinair on November 17, 2003. He was a commercial pilot holding both single and multi-engine ratings. His total flight time was recorded as 2,614 hours, with 1,397 of those hours acquired piloting Cessna Citation series aircraft. As a pilot for Cessna Citation aircraft, the first officer had accumulated 322 hours as pilot in command. I wasn't able to find the name of the flight crew for this accident. So at approximately 8:51 a.m., while cruising at 37,000 feet, the flight crew initiated a descent to 16,000 feet, activating the engine and windshield anti-ice systems in preparation for landing at PUB. Around 8:55 a.m., the first officer noted the presence of greyish ice, signifying a rough surface accumulating on the wing's leading edges, commenting on a real thin line back there. The flight encountered mixed icing conditions lasting roughly 5.5 minutes as they descended from 21,000 feet to 14,000 feet. Passing through 18,000 feet, the first officer recommended cycling the de-ice boots. The captain complied, however, residual ice remained on the wings. At 8:59 a.m., the first officer confirmed a VREF, which is the landing reference speed, of 96 knots. Given the presence of icing conditions, company and manufacturer guidance dictated an 8-knot increase to VREF, which should have been set to 104 knots. However, no record exists of the flight crew acknowledging or making this adjustment. By 9:08 a.m., the aircraft, descending through 9,400 feet, entered Instrument Meteorological Conditions, or IMC, Shortly thereafter, at approximately 7,400 feet, the first officer reported clear ice accumulation on the wing. Between 9,400 and 6,100 feet, the aircraft likely encountered supercooled large droplet (SLD) conditions lasting for 4.5 minutes. These conditions could have resulted in an additional ice accumulation of between 1 and 4 millimeters on the leading edges of the wings. Despite company procedure and manufacturer guidance to activate the de-ice boot system when configuring for approach and landing in icing conditions, no evidence indicates the flight crew did so. The aircraft began its final descent from 7,000 feet at 10 past 9 in the morning, maintaining an airspeed of approximately 155 knots. The airspeed began decreasing at around 11 minutes past 9, and the landing gear was extended shortly after, followed by the extension of speed brakes and selection of full flaps. At 9:12 a.m., with an airspeed of roughly 121 knots, the first officer noted, "And you are plus 25, to which the captain responded, "Slow in." Halfway through 12 past 9, the first officer recommended activating the de-ice boots, acknowledging they had reached VREF. However, the aircraft, now at approximately 6,100 feet, experienced an upset. Immediately after the aircraft passed through 6,100 feet, a large roll to the left began, along with a rapid decrease in pitch. The CVR, or cockpit voice recorder, recorded a tone that was consistent with the autopilot disconnect horn. At 9:12:46, the Enhanced Ground Proximity Warning System, or EGPWS, recorded a bank angle oral warning. The last radar return from the aircraft was received at 9:12:54, when the aircraft was at an altitude of about 4,922 feet. 1 second later, the CVR stopped recording. The PUB local controller issued an altitude alert to the aircraft, stating 0 Alpha Tango altitude alert. Altitude indicates 4,900 over. At 9:12:57, the captain of the sister ship reported that he heard the accident aircraft be cleared to land. Then shortly after, he heard the controller issue a low altitude warning of about 4,900 feet. The controller made 3 or 4 calls to the aircraft, but they were not acknowledged. The sister ship captain then looked at his TCAS and saw that the accident aircraft was no longer displayed. The aircraft crashed at approximately 09:13 Mountain Standard Time. The 2 pilots and 6 passengers on board were killed. The aircraft was destroyed by impact forces and a post-crash fire. The airplane was destroyed on impact after crashing about 4 nautical miles east of Pueblo Memorial Airport. Sadly, all 8 occupants, 2 pilots and 6 passengers, perished in the accident. The National Transportation Safety Board, or the NTSB, conducted a thorough investigation to determine the probable cause of this tragedy. The investigation found no evidence of pre-existing mechanical or structural issues that could have contributed to the crash. The official report concluded the probable cause of the accident was the flight crew's failure to effectively monitor and maintain airspeed and adhere to de-ice boot activation procedures during the approach. This failure ultimately led to an aerodynamic stall that proved unrecoverable. The report also identified a contributing factor: the Federal Aviation Administration's insufficient certification requirements for flights in icing conditions, which resulted in an inadequate stall warning margin provided by the aeroplane's stall warning system. That wraps up our discussion of the tragic 2005 Cessna Citation 560 crash near Pueblo, Colorado. The National Transportation Safety Board conducted a thorough investigation to understand what went wrong. They discovered the primary cause was the flight crew's failure to effectively monitor and maintain the aeroplane's airspeed and follow the correct procedures for using the de-ice boots during the approach, ultimately leading to an aerodynamic stall from which they couldn't recover. The NTSB's report highlights a contributing factor to the accident: inadequate certification requirements from the Federal Aviation Administration, or the FAA, for flights in icing conditions. This inadequacy contributed to the insufficient stall warning margin provided by the airplane's stall warning system. Reach out on social media and let me know how you found this shorter episode with the information more condensed, or if you prefer the longer episodes. Also, please leave a rating on whatever platform you get your podcasts on. I've been your host Daniel, this has been The Flight Files, and thanks for listening.